When I was little, I used to climb on top of the refrigerator and play on top of the refrigerator as if it was just a spot to play. And I also had an imaginary friend that lived on top of the refrigerator.
That's weird. How did you get on top of the refrigerator?
Climbed on the kitchen counter.
Was there anything on top of the refrigerator?
No.
Weird.
So I can eat a drink.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us once again on the Unbroken Ground, the CallieChats.
Is that what it was called?
Yep.
All right.
CallieChats.
All right.
Better than Talks with Jim.
It's not better. It's just different.
That's true. That's very true. If you're listening to this, then you are skipping ahead because version 1, episode 1 of the CallieChats is probably where you want to start. But I don't know. Maybe you like to start in the middle of the story, then you want to listen to episode 2, where we pick up from where we ended on episode 1. Yeah, I'm joined by my wife, Callie. We're talking about her journey and my journey and our journey through cancer and all things included. And she has notes and a computer and prepares, which is very different than what Jim does. Not better, just different. So, are you going to start?
Yeah, I can. I think we were talking about this earlier while we were eating dinner. You asked me if I remembered where we left off. I think I do. I think we kind of left off last time. The radiation oncologist had told us to go ahead and go on vacation because we kind of had some doubts if we were going to be able to go on vacation, what that would look like, if I was going to have to immediately start treatments. And he gave us the go-ahead to enjoy that time, and then I would just call him when I got back. But I think one thing that we did kind of skip over, if I remember
I don't know.
correctly.
Did we talk about, did we talk about Dr. Smile? I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, we for sure talked about Dr. Smile, but...
He should have been a dentist.
Yeah, he should have been a dentist. What I don't think we mentioned was the thing about when we went back to see Dr. Rahman at the beginning of July, about maybe 5 weeks after my surgery, the oncotype test had come back. That's what we were waiting on, to see what the treatment would be going forward. Your oncotype test, it has a certain score, and whatever that score is kind of helps the doctors decide whether they think chemotherapy would be right for as part of your treatment plan, if chemotherapy and radiation, just radiation. So she laid it all out for us, and I was surprised with the idea that you didn't have to do chemotherapy. My only reference point, all that I knew about cancer, was that you had surgery, did chemotherapy, did radiation. I didn't realize that there was an option not to do that. And so I think that really threw me for a loop when she said that she recommended that chemotherapy really wouldn't make that much of a percentage difference. Would you agree with that? About
I think she was not. She was like, I don't think I don't think the doctors these days recommend anything. I think she was just like, yeah, it's not. It doesn't look like it would be more effective than not getting chemo, and so knowing how hard chemo can be on your body, she was like, I'm okay with you not getting chemo.
yeah.
And I think we were leaning towards that anyway. I think we had kind of originally talked about that when we were at the office the first time. So
Yeah.
I think so. She just was like, the studies don't show that in cases like yours, chemo seemed to have a very high difference in cancer coming back or not, and so she was like, yeah, I'm just okay with you not doing that.
I will, you said something a second ago about like doctors don't recommend anything.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? I actually would say doctors recommend things, but they don't tell you what to do. So that's what I don't like.
I think they give you options. I don't know if they even recommend.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It just was not very committal. It was more of like, well, what do you want to do? And,
right.
you know, and she was just like, yeah, I'm fine with either way. If you want to
Right.
do chemo, you can do chemo. If you don't want to do chemo, that's fine too. And she's like, studies show that you don't necessarily get better results if you do chemo versus
For my particular.
for your. Well, I mean, because again, if you're just joining us, you may not know this, but you had a very small spot that was found very early that it didn't spread. It was basically removed when they did the lumpectomy, and so chemotherapy just seemed like overkill because you didn't really have anything left, according to the doctors.
Right. The margins were clear and the lymph nodes were clear. It had not spread. So, yeah. I mean, I think she was all for whatever we wanted to do, but her thoughts were that chemotherapy wouldn't make that much of a difference in regards to the percentage of it coming back.
Right.
And as like you mentioned earlier, I mean, cancer is kind of going to do what it wants to do, and all of these treatments are not 100% guaranteed that it won't come back. And so I think we were, or at least I was a little bit shocked, I guess, that I didn't have to do chemotherapy. And so then the plan of action was, well, okay, but what do we do now? So that's where Dr. Smile came into play, because he's the one who
Well, I mean, you were always going to do radiation. I think that was kind of always like you always knew you were going to do radiation.
Yeah.
I was very hopeful that you wouldn't have to do chemo because of just how rough your body has had it over the last year, and just, you know, adding chemotherapy to that seemed like it would be a continued tough thing for you.
Sure.
So I wasn't particularly, and we had heard of other people not having chemo. You know, there's been a lot of more recent people that we've even talked to that also didn't have any chemo. You know, they were just, you know, either mastectomy or lumpectomy and radiation, and then they were done. So I think that's becoming more common. But of course, 20 or so years ago, that wasn't the case. So.
Right. So when we got back from vacation,
Well, we didn't talk about when we went on vacation.
Well, that's not part of my cancer stuff, though.
I mean,
Where did we go? I don't even remember.
We went to Kentucky.
Oh, that's right.
We went almost to Cincinnati, but that's Ohio.
Right. Well, we did go to Cincinnati because we went to the Cincinnati Zoo, right?
Yes, but we didn't stay in Cincinnati. We ended up staying in Kentucky. We went to the Ark, which was
Ark Encounter.
Yeah, the Ark Encounter. That was something.
I didn't really talk about vacation because I didn't really think it had much to do with our cancer journey.
I mean, you were recovering from. You were in the middle of recovery, and at this time you were on some medications, weren't you?
Nope, hadn't started yet.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, then this was the pause before you started all that.
I think this was the week of, let's not do anything cancer related. Let's not have any doctor's appointments. Let's not think about it. And then when we come back, we'll start treatment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you had a week where you got to just hang out, and we went to the Ark. We did an escape room. We went to the Cincinnati Zoo. We did a lot of walking,
I do remember
which made us very tired.
Yes, I do remember that. I was very fatigued.
And we also ate some Skyline chili, which is disgusting.
Do not recommend.
Disgusting. At least the ones we had. Maybe somebody else makes it better. But
yeah.
We also had the best pickles in the world.
Yeah, I wish they made those somewhere else besides just.
I mean, we're driving through Kentucky. Well, kind of. We're driving through Indiana, close to Ohio, Kentucky. I don't know where we're gonna go. We'll see.
I have no idea what route we're doing next week.
Me neither.
Oh, okay.
One of us should probably figure that out.
Yeah, that's why we have GPSs. So.
But anyway,
I pulled up an email from July of last year.
An email. Okay.
In regards to those 2 big appointments that we had with Dr. Smile and Dr. Rahman.
Okay. And
it says, the overall takeaway is that chemotherapy will only lessen the chances of reoccurrence by 6.5%. Therefore, Paul and I both felt that that percentage was not high enough to justify the toll that chemotherapy will take on my body, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and the doctor agreed. Doing hormone therapy or hormone blockers and radiation will roughly come out to the same end result, and it's a lot less toxic to my body. So,
there you go.
With the
therefore
percentage, I did have I got delayed a little bit with radiation because I had a staph infection. Got picked that up in the hospital and had to be on antibiotics for a few rounds. But we got home from vacation and I got in touch with Dr. Smile's office and kind of got the rundown of what we needed to do from that point on and what it would look like. There's a couple of different things you have to do to prep for that. You just don't show up on the first day of radiation and you're set and ready to go. You can add something. I mean, it sounds
well,
like
I mean, yeah. If we're going by you show up on the last day of radiation and you're not ready to go. So
yeah, radiation was a horrible experience for me. It was absolutely awful. I would not wish that upon my worst.
Well, you have to at least explain that. You can't just be like it was a horrible experience. The Dr. Smile was very nice and very gracious. It was more of a sensory problem for you than anything else.
It was a sensory, high sensory problem, but also the expectation of what I thought was going to happen did not happen. And maybe it's a little bit of me being naive, or maybe Dr. Smile didn't explain it, or maybe I didn't understand it, but...
Probably that part.
And I mean, that may very well be true, that I didn't understand it, but he also, throughout this whole week, he apologized very much so, and was like, I'm so sorry that I didn't explain it to you, like, let me show you pictures, he was very helpful and very gracious and loving during that whole time.
Yes. We were both disappointed you didn't get any superpowers. Yeah. That was actually the worst part.
Yeah, Paul really wanted me to have superpowers.
Yeah, well, you wanted your blood to turn green, so I don't know.
No, that was from Dr. Wang.
I know, but you wanted your blood to turn green. You were like, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
So.
She just said my pee was going to turn green.
Yeah. So, but it was, well, there was 2 things, if I remember correctly.
Are you going to jump right into radiation? Because I was going to talk about the simulation first.
Oh, well, talk about the simulation then.
Okay, so like I was saying earlier, you don't just show up on day 1 and just start radiation. You go in a couple of weeks before you think you might want to start radiation, and you go in and get a simulation. And what that means is that they lay you down on the table and they make a mold of you. Think of it as kind of like a deflated pool float that kind of molds to your body shape, and they put your arms in the exact position how they want them based on where the radiation is going to go. They also marked my body with X's, like one on the breast, obviously to pinpoint where the radiation was going to go. I had 3 X's across my stomach, so they would know where to line up the machine. It's very precise. And they said once that's all done, they would call me and hopefully I would be able to start radiation within the next couple of weeks. Because that was on July 15th.
Well, did we skip ahead? I don't know. But I think it's very important to also note that you were getting a very specific, concentrated
Yes.
dose of radiation.
Yes.
And so that was also something that was a little harder for you
Mm-hmm.
because you didn't understand the math basically behind it all. But
Right.
basically, you had, instead of having like 2 weeks of radiation,
Or 5 weeks.
or 5 weeks, or 2 years, whatever it could be. 2 years is probably a little long,
I
but
don't think 2 years.
but it was just like 5 days, one after the other, of this concentrated radiation, and it only, and the way, because it was all robotic, and this is why you're doing the mold thing, why it has to be so precise, is that the radiation only hit that area that it was targeted, which is a very small area on your body, and so you had to be in the exact same place. And so because it was all these things that we clicked off, right? It was like your age, it was the type of cancer you had, the size of cancer you had,
Family
the
history.
family history, the results of the surgery. Like that's what allowed you to have this limited amount of radiation. But that also, I think, I don't know if it bugged you a little bit because you were like, is this good? Is this
Good enough.
is this heavy dose or this concentrated dose as equal to or better or worse than, say, if I had a course of treatment over 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 6 weeks? And the doctor did try to explain that to you.
He was wonderful. He was so.
Callie
he
never
was
understood,
So good
so
to me.
he was very good, but he tried to get into units and radiation language, and that did not work.
It didn't. I mean, I have it pulled up right here on my computer, and I could read it to you, but it means nothing to me. The only thing I can say is that the type of radiation I had was accelerated partial breast irradiation.
Irradiation.
Yeah, APBI is what it's called. So it was very concentrated and very accelerated in one spot versus having radiation over the whole breast.
Right.
So yeah, that was very hard for me to wrap my brain around because I just was nervous that, like, are you sure this is enough? Are you sure that this is what we need to do? I don't know, I just kind of had a lot of reservation about that. Dr. Spile did say that, like, the 5-fraction regimen, or the 5 days of radiation, does pack a powerful punch, and yet it does so by sparing the whole breast because you're just doing it in a very small space.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I mean, I think physically it didn't affect you that much at all. Mentally, you had a powerful punch.
Yeah.
But
people talk a lot about, like, when they've had radiation before, and, like, they get radiation burns and their skin is red and raw and just horrible things are happening, and mine never really got that way. I had some medicine to put on it just in case, but it got red and it was a little, swollen and things like that, but I don't think it really got as bad as obviously it could have had I had a whole breast radiation instead of just that one, like, pinpoint spot.
But sorry, I jumped maybe back because I don't think we necessarily explained why you had to be in this mold and why you had to be so pinpoint. But that was why. So you went and got into the what did you call it? Deflated pool float.
Yeah.
That molded to your body so that they could then create a model, and then the doctor basically took a computer and designed the how the radiation arms and the table and all of that's going to move to get you situated so that the radiation can go to where it's supposed to go.
Right. I think the hardest thing for me is that I had an idea in my head about what radiation was and what it would look like, and it wasn't that at all. And I never could get past that.
Well, your problem was there weren't enough strobe lights and lasers.
Yes, and I'm not kidding.
You needed because the arm that delivers the radiation just waved over you, and then was done.
Yeah, and I'm not kidding when I literally thought that there was going to be a laser shooting like a lightsaber onto
Yeah.
my breast.
Yeah.
I really thought that's what was going to happen. And when that didn't happen, it freaked me out.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand what was happening. And I can't move. So when you're in a place of high stress and you're overwhelmed with all these...
You couldn't move because they, like...
I'm in that mold, my body.
Part of the, like, when they lay you on the table, it's like, now stay that way.
Yeah.
Not just... And they don't usually strap you in, although... It's just like you have to... It's like when you do an MRI or do a CAT scan when it's like you have to be still because the machine's got to do its work. Yeah. And so you had to, there's nothing really keeping you from moving necessarily, except for they're like, you can't move.
Right.
They told you that, so you had to keep that, like you had to concentrate specifically to be in that space. So, I mean, you and Dr. Evil, you just wanted some frickin' lasers. Is that too much to ask? Some frickin' lasers on the bass. Yeah.
It's from Austin Powers.
It's from Austin.
Yes.
Wow, you knew it.
I knew it. I've never seen the whole movie.
It's too much to ask. It's just some frickin' lasers. You should have told Dr. Smile that. You're like, Dr. Smile, is that too much to ask? Some frickin' lasers. Some strobe lights. I don't know. Something that makes this, like, that makes...
And I can laugh about it now, but it was a very, very traumatic experience for me. And I'm not kidding.
Did I take you the first day?
No, I drove myself.
You were like,
I was like, this is no big deal.
Yeah, I didn't even take off work.
Fine. Paul didn't take off work.
Because you were like, I don't need you.
This
is gonna be easy.
They said it would take like an hour by the time you changed clothes and got on the table and got everything situated
and that was the last time I didn't take you.
Yeah, Monday. And normally, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what all the sounds and the table was moving, and then this thing above my head was moving, and I felt like I was on a roller coaster or like a tilt-a-whirl, but I couldn't see anything. And it was horrific, and I hated every minute of it. And I got off that table, and I was just bawling and hyperventilating, basically. I was having a panic attack.
Which is not an unusual state for Callie.
It's not. I've had them several times before, but the poor nurses, they were like, I don't know what to do with you. Yeah. Here's a Kleenex. Like, I don't know what's happening. And typically what Dr. Smile does is that he does not see the patient on the first day unless something just goes wrong. But he's there in the building, and he watches, and if something goes awry or they need help, or he's there. But he typically does not see the patient face to face on the first day. He will check in with you at the end of the week. Well, because of what was happening with me, he saw me after my treatment, that radiation, that first day, and I just lost it. I couldn't talk. I couldn't breathe. I didn't understand what was happening. And this is where the point came of, like, he apologized so much because he's like, I'm sorry I didn't prepare you. I thought I told you what was going to happen. And then I was embarrassed because I really thought that there was going to be a light, like a strobe light. And so then, of course, I got embarrassed and overwhelmed. And so he suggested that for the next day that I try to take some of my, what I call emergency medicine.
Family medicine.
Yeah, my Texas medicine, as I lovingly call it. I take anxiety meds every day anyway, but I have extra medicine that I take. And so he suggested that I take that. And he suggested that I not drive myself. And that Paul brought me. And of course I had to get myself home. And I don't really remember the rest of that day. Like, I don't remember that Monday, other than, I don't know if I made you come home from work or if I just pretty much just laid in bed all day. But it was a very, very overwhelming.
I don't think I came home from work.
You don't think you did?
No.
I remember did I call you from the car? Like, I don't even remember what happened.
I don't know.
But, I mean, I had to do this for 4 more days.
I don't know. I just know I took the next 4 days off.
In the morning.
In the morning. And went to work after lunch.
The second day, it was still just as horrible. I met with Dr. Smile again. He prescribed a different medicine, a stronger anti-anxiety medicine. Then I definitely couldn't drive with that one. I also talked about, I seriously remember thinking, like, I don't know if I can do this for 3 more days.
I mean, they did at one point be like, well, we could stop. But then by that time, it was so close to the end, it was like, no, let's just get this done because I don't want to have to go through this again.
Right, yeah. They were like, well, we can stop, after the 3rd day. I was like, no, just keep going. I just need to be done. Yeah. I don't want this to linger any longer. And I asked if I could, wear earbuds, but I was not allowed to do that. They did suggest they could play music for me over the loudspeaker. So on Thursday, they asked me what I like to listen to, and so they found a Spotify playlist for me or whatever, but I couldn't hear it. It wasn't loud enough, and so it didn't help. It was just a horrible, horrible week. Every day was worse than the day before.
I think the way you described it to me that I think makes the most sense for those of us who've not experienced it. Part of it was the anticipation of you would lay down in the table and the nurses would get you situated. Mm-hmm. So the nurses are in the room, they lay you down, and then they're like, now stay. Mm-hmm. Like, don't move. Right. And somewhere between 30 seconds and 5 minutes, some probably click, usually not around the 5-minute mark, but they had to get a doctor to come and look at the machine, the computer simulation, right, to see that you were in the right place. Right. So you didn't know how long you had to stay. You didn't know when it was going to start. And right, so it was like being on a roller coaster, mm-hmm, with that anticipation of going down like you're at the top of the crest and you're about to go down. So you have that like the bottom of your stomach. But you never get the thrill of the roller coaster. You just have the anxiety, right? And then you go home, right? Like you just experience like the not the joy of the not that roller coasters are good or fun or anyway, but yeah, some people like them, and they add nothing to my life, just like ropes course. But you don't get to experience that kind of the thrill or exhilaration. You just have anxiety, and so you had anxiety because you didn't know, because they couldn't be like, hey, yeah, in 30 seconds we're gonna do this. It was like, well, we've got to get to the doctor, so you may have to lay there for 2 minutes, but you don't, and then there's no way to keep time, and now you're just like, okay, when is it gonna happen? And then all of a sudden things just start moving because the table, yes, the table moves. Mm-hmm.
The table kind of like rotates back and forth, and this thing comes up above and like goes over your head, kind of like a rainbow arc. Yeah. And then the table would move again, and then
not one freaking laser.
It's still, my stomach still hurts just thinking about it.
Because it's that anticipation that you have, like before you go off a zip line, before you go down a roller coaster, yes, like you have that like anxiety, that fear, that tension. But if you're not able to, it's like winding a Jack in the Box and never having it pop. Yeah. So you did not do well, but then you got more stronger things, and then finally Thursday you were like, I hate this, and they're like, well, we could stop, and it's like, I have one more day. Yeah. I'm not stopping now. Let's get this done. Let's get out of here. Yeah. And so that's what we did.
I'm looking back at my emails to Dr. Smile because I emailed him every day. And it says, well, day number 2 was definitely worse than the first day. And I didn't think it could get much worse.
Spoiler, it does.
And then Wednesday, I was like, well, today wasn't as bad, but it was pretty bad.
Well, Wednesday night, I think it was Wednesday night, maybe not. Wednesday night, was it Wednesday night that he, like sometime like at 7 o'clock, he was like, hey, I have have put in a stronger prescription.
Yeah,
like he
maybe
was
that
like
was.
he was like emailing you back like at
Yeah,
7 or 8 o'clock at night.
he
Like,
was. That might
hey,
have
I
been
just and you
Tuesday
gotta
night.
go. You gotta go in the morning. You gotta go pick it up so
Yeah.
that you can take it because you need to take it because we
Four.
were doing 9 o'clock appointments
Mm-hmm.
and you had to take it like 40 minutes before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so he was very good and it was a very very rough experience for you.
Yeah, it was awful.
So
My stomach still hurts thinking about it.
yeah,
He was so good. He was so good to me the whole time. But I think the problem was he couldn't make it better. I mean, there's not some magic button he could push or thing that he could make it go faster or quicker or better. Like, he just...
no, you still had to go through
I
the
still
radiation
had to
treatment.
do it, yeah. And he did... I remember asking if I could wear earbuds, and he said no. I did ask if I had to wait in the waiting room, because that was another kind of a trigger, because there was other women that were also waiting in the waiting room, and they were in there and were like already in the depths of radiation, and they're like, oh, you'll be fine, it's not a big deal, and they like could see me very audibly and physically hyped up and having these horrible reactions. And he did suggest that I could take an eye mask and like put it over my eyes so I wouldn't see things happening. But I never did that because if I didn't like the eye mask or if it slipped off, I can't move to fix it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to move to take it off. So
You
that
could
would
have
have...
duct taped it to your face.
Right, but what I'm saying is if I didn't like it,
We could have made it happen.
I couldn't have removed it.
Right.
So that would have made it worse.
Well, but just for that one time, you'd learn.
So anyway, that whole experience was awful.
Callie made it through all last week without crying, but I don't just talking about radiation. She is on the verge of tears, and that's how bad it was.
It was really bad.
It was good for me. I have to take mornings off.
We went out to breakfast every morning.
Did we go out every morning?
One time
Well, Monday I didn't pick you up. Monday I didn't go.
Yeah.
Tuesday I think we went to. Did we go to the original Pancake House? Maybe.
One time we went to Childers. One time we went to the original Pancake
Oh,
House.
you like Childers? Yeah, I forgot.
We must have gone out at least a couple of times.
Yeah.
One time he bought me a Diet Dr. Pepper as like a reward
Yeah.
for making it through.
Yeah, from Casey's. Yeah. Yeah, we did. I do remember doing Childers. Yeah.
And I looked terrible. I felt terrible, like just mentally.
But you made it through.
But I made it through.
You survived.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. The last day, or maybe second to last day, Kara came over
Yeah.
and brought us dinner.
Yeah.
And I had texted her that morning and said, hey, I made it through. Like, I'm almost done. I'm getting better.
Yeah.
And then she came over, and I just remember losing it.
Well, because you thought, Tuesday was a little... I think Tuesday was okay, this is okay.
I never said it was okay.
Well, you did. Tuesday you were like, okay, I can probably handle this. But that's because they were like, let me play the music for you, and you could listen to music before you went in.
Yeah.
And so you had all this stuff going on.
To prepare
and
myself.
the same ladies weren't there, and so
That's true, too.
You had
yeah.
And so you were like, all right, it wasn't as bad.
I think that was Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, Wednesday.
But that's why you were like, oh yeah, it's a much better day, and then, but I think Tuesday you're like, oh yeah, and I'm gonna get some, we're gonna get some better medication, and I think it'll be even better.
Yeah.
And it was not.
It was not.
So yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, it was a week, but we got through it, 5 days, and then
I started school.
and then you started at school, and I was already doing school.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I had radiation for 5 days, Monday through Friday, and I started school the following Monday.
Yeah.
I didn't know if, when I finished the school year in May of 2024, having just been diagnosed, I didn't know at that point if I was even coming back in the fall. If I was coming back, what would that look like? Would I be doing treatments? Would I be done with treatments? Would I not be doing anything? And I remember it being very, I don't know, I felt very vulnerable that.
Well, but at the end of the school year, you didn't know what was going to happen at all.
Yeah,
and so, nobody did. We didn't know. We were, end of the school year, that's when we started going, that's when we kind of started going to the appointments. And that's when we started, it was like, oh, we're not going to have to, we're just not, it's not going to have to be a double vasectomy. It's not going to have to be chemotherapy. It's not going to have to be, but all those things were on the table, at least as far as just, we didn't just, all we knew was you had cancer, and we didn't know what it was going to be. So at the end of the school year, you're like, I don't know. I want to be back, but I don't know. And I think one of the hard transitions for you, too, was that, we kind of talked about this a little bit last time, but I think going back to school, it was super hard because you had nothing really physically reflective of your journey. And so you felt in some ways I think an imposter syndrome, because you're like, I don't look any different, but yet I've had these internal things going on, and also it just, when you have, this is just something you learn, when you have sickness, when you have death in the family, when you have things, tragedy go on, people don't know what to say, and they don't know what to ask, and then you don't know how much that person knows. So when they're like, so what's the update, or how you doing? It's like, well, I don't know. How much do you know? What have you heard? How did you only hear I had cancer back in May when the school ended, and now you're like, so what's going on? And so then you're like, well, what do I? And then it's so hard to tell people. You're like, well, I don't know. Where do I need to start? Where in the journey? Where in the journey do you know? And so, and it just made it, I think, very difficult. And it's just a hard thing because people just honestly don't know what to say. And so, and then, you have to be part of you is just like, I'm fine. Because you don't want to be like, well, I hated radiation, and now I've got hormone therapy that I'm... Hormone blockers that I'm going to go through. Hormone therapy is a totally different thing.
Yeah, please call it hormone blockers, not hormone therapy. It's two different things.
Therapy with hormones. The hormone blockers, and it's causing so many problems. But I think that you did feel tired, but we just never knew if it was because you had radiation or it was because you started school and you hadn't worked. Just that. Hey, everybody gets tired because they're not used to being at work for 6 or 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, we just never knew.
I'm quiet over here because I'm crying.
We're reliving radiation. We gotta get out of that. No more radiation.
Well, I'm reliving radiation, and then I'm also reliving the idea of going back to school and what you said about kind of being an imposter, or a little bit of, I think I mentioned this last time about, I felt a little bit of survivor's guilt, or that I made it a big deal and it actually turned out to not be that big of a deal, although the counselor would tell me that it was a big deal.
Well, I think it's hard. It's hard because when you left all those people, for the most part, you didn't. Most of them didn't get summer updates.
Right. Unless we were friends on Facebook, which was really only a handful of them anyway.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, it's a full school of people, and you're not going to be friends with everybody. You're not going to be on Facebook with friends with everybody, and they have their own lives, and that's. But what makes it hard is that you left them with, "Hey, I have cancer," and now you're like,
"I'm back.
I'm fine,
and I look the same." Yeah, it was really hard, and it's still hard.
I mean, it is. I think it is. It's just because and I think that we talked about this a little bit, but I think we didn't talk too much about it. But we kind of did in the first podcast. But for me. So we'll talk about me for a little while, so you don't have to talk about you.
Yeah, please do.
I mean, for me, it was kind of like, I mean, I'm watching from the outside. I don't have cancer. I'm not experiencing that. But then, I just started making connections with people whose wives were also going through cancer, or who were going through cancer themselves. I think that the last time I played paintball was, I think, the last weekend of June, just before, I think I went to White River and played Commanded.
After my surgery, but before we kind of knew.
Before we knew much.
What was going on.
And my friend Blue, had, he was dealing with cancer.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about how he was in a grief group, or a cancer group, and two of his people in his group had passed, and then he talked a lot about survivor's guilt of why, he's still going strong today, and so praise God for that. But and then
our friend from church that is still struggling with her cancer journey 2 years later.
Yeah. I mean, almost, some of that was happening almost at the same, unbeknownst to us, because there were some very private moments and then there were some very public moments, but our friend Vicky and is still, going through that and just, so you become part of a club that you don't really want to belong to. But even if you don't know the specific details, even if you don't know all the circumstances, this is skipped super far ahead, but that's fine. I think it's just a beautiful thing. It's a terrible thing because you don't want to be part of this club, but I don't know what, 4 weeks ago, we went to there was a Cure for Cancer baseball game.
Swing for the Cure.
And they had a survivor walk, and Callie had just, a couple of weeks out of shoulder surgery, and this I don't know, little 70-year-old lady.
So let me set the scene for you. I have a sling on that has the bolster because I had just had rotator cuff surgery probably 10 days before that. I had compression socks on because I had to wear them for 2 weeks after surgery. I also had a knee brace on because I'm struggling with some knee pain. I am the walking wounded.
You were looking good.
I was looking
so
rough. Good. And I probably was one of the youngest ones that was walking.
Probably, but you had to go, so we're at the top, we're on the concourse at the top, and you had to go all the way down on the steps.
On the stairs, yeah.
And all the way and then onto the field. Mm-hmm. And so these cancer survivors who are walking with you, one of them was probably 60, 70 years old, little little black lady, and
So
she
sweet.
was like, "Oh, honey, I got you.
Yeah.
Like, come on." She's grabbing your hand and like leading you
Uh-huh.
down the stairs, and and you didn't know her at all, like
No.
that, but you guys belong to.
And I didn't even ask her to help me.
Yeah, no, she was just like, "Hey,
Yeah.
we're all cancer.
We're in this together.
we're this cancer survivors," and that's what it was. And I think that, like, you start to see that, and for me, I've never had anybody in my family who had cancer. That was not something like your history. Your sister, obviously, you guys had been big Komen sponsor,
Yeah.
big supporters, and of course, Marcy having walked through that at a very young age, and you having that as a reality. That's just, but I never had that, and you just start to you really, I think, can relate, even if you don't even really know the people, how hard it is to walk the journey, and if you've never experienced it, it's hard to even imagine. And some of it's just like the emotions. Some of it's just the fact that you're these realities that you're having to deal with that suddenly. I mean, even though you weren't ever thinking that you were going to die, you really weren't close to that as far as what you had. I mean, it was because it was discovered super early and treated so well. But, I mean, there is a little bit of I think, this kind of idea that your body is your body is betraying you. And so it's just things that people go through. And it also can be very isolating, and so I think just seeing that. So there's the I don't want to skip that far. We can skip far. I don't know, but because
I'm not ready to skip ahead.
I'm skipping ahead. Sweet. Hey, I'm the host. I can do whatever I want. Because for me, this is spoiler alerts here. Just in talking about this, I think it's like so. We'll get back to Callie being at school, but for me, like that October, November.
I don't know where you're going.
My sister was diagnosed.
Oh, yeah, November.
October, November.
Yeah.
She was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that was pretty crazy.
That came out of the blue.
Yeah, came out of nowhere, and so she had to get treated for breast cancer, and then I was scrolling through Instagram one day, and one of the artists I really enjoy is Ross King, and his wife was dealing with some different kind of cancer, and you just kind of connect on a different level of being like, yeah, I know, what you're going through, because there's the thing about it is there's nothing I can really do. I can't fix it. I can't change it. I can just try to offer support. But it is, you're not exhausting, dear, but caring for people is exhausting. It's tiring. And on top of that, I was like, hey, let's do full-time graduate school. And so I definitely just really
That was great timing.
Hey, you said yes.
But I actually think it was very good for you to have something on your mind.
It gave me a focus that I had to do.
Very good for you.
Gave me a purpose for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
So it was very good. It filled my weekends. It engaged my mind. So, and then I mean, but we. But I think just the final connection there, and I just like this club, and I think that because Tyler Merritt talks a lot about it, is like, yeah, Tyler Merritt's in it, and he's talking about how this is a club you don't want to be a part of. And interesting enough, I'm jumping super far ahead now, so these are spoiler alerts for future episodes. But when you had your toe surgery, I was reading through. I had gotten Tyler Merritt's book, but I hadn't, because I was doing school. I hadn't had a chance to read through it, and so I started to read through it. And in fact, I started reading it to you while you were in recovery, hiccuping, and
I was doing more than hiccuping. I was going into.
You were not going into anaphylactic shock. You were on the edge, but you weren't. They gave you ice. It's fine.
Okay, what's the point of this, dear?
That you, but I think you also so reading, his first book, I Like My Coffee Black, is very good, but it's about kind of his experience of racial things and
being a black man in America,
right, but also just about how proximity brings empathy and so that's very good. But then his second book, is really just a journey of, I have cancer, now what? And so I think you picked up on that even more so, and just read through it, and you are listened through it, and just some of the humor and just some of the things that you just have to just accept. So it's this weird club that you don't want to be a part of, but it's also one where, we used to wear cancer shirts all the time, because you would do the walk and you would do that, but it's different.
It's different that I have to wear a pink shirt now. I don't have to, but I
well, it's different. Yeah, it's different that, before that I was like, yeah, I've never really known anybody to have cancer. Mm-hmm. I mean, your sister, but I didn't know your sister while she was going through that for the most part. As far as family goes, and so it's just a new kind of an awareness, but it's also this club that you're like, yeah, we're in. We don't want to be in, but we're in. So it is. It is this weird community, but I think it's a beautiful community because there's a lot of people who don't have to know all your story to just know what you're going through, and I think that one of the things. We'll come back. We're almost at an hour, so we'll come back to going back to school, and you can cry on the next one. Okay. She can't speak because she's gonna cry. So let me say it. So let's end it this way. Let's end it on a happy note. I think one of the things that I saw you do. Was when my sister was diagnosed, so that's 6 months after, or 5 months after, you were a resource for her, and I think you felt kind of hey, I've gone through this, I can be a resource, and you guys even texted and talked on the phone.
Yeah.
That you hadn't really done that before, And
I love your sister dearly, but we just don't have that type of relationship that we text and call and things like that. But yeah, that was probably the first time I've ever talked to her on the phone without you, us having a joint conversation. Right.
So I had to find stuff about my sister from my wife.
Yeah.
So it was one of those ways of being God just kind of saying, hey, I know this is not necessarily what you want, but here's a way you can minister to somebody else. And so I thought that was, really, really neat. There's also just the fact that there's going to be people in our lives that come in and out that are also going to have cancer, and we can say, we don't know exactly, but we know. And, what can we do? And I think that you've continued in the community, and you've met some people, and I think that's just been a big thing about the fact that everybody, once you're in the club, you're in the club, and you don't get out. So that's been I think at least a positive thing. But it doesn't mean it hasn't been hard. And
This did not go.
Well, I thought the first one you would cry more, but we're waiting on round number 2.
Did not go the way I thought it would today.
Well, you started talking about radiation, which was probably one of the worst experiences of your life. Yeah. And you had to endure it for 5 days, and I think that was when we got to Friday, it was just like, I hate this, but it's over. Let's just get it done.
I told the nurses, I never want to see you again.
Yeah.
I hope I never have to come back into this building again.
Yeah.
Which I do have to go back to that building because I have to see Dr. Smile as a patient in the room, not in the radiation.
But not for radiation.
But I still cry every time I go in that building. I go in that building. I've seen him probably, let's say, 4 times since then. Just as a patient having a checkup, and I cry every time. I don't know if I'll ever be able to step into that building and not cry.
Yeah. And I think that's, it's just a unique part of your experience, because I think other people were like, well, I had radiation, I was fine. They're just, but then they had other things that really bothered them. They don't, but I don't think anybody judges you for that. I think they're just like, everybody has this we all have this common thing, it's cancer, and then everybody has their own struggle, their own difficulties, their own, different things. And radiation was definitely the hardest thing that you had to go through. Finding out you had cancer wasn't even as hard as having radiation.
That was a breeze. And obviously I'm still struggling with things and working through things now, even a year later.
Yeah, you would just basically go to radiation and then come home and lay on the bed.
Yeah, I crashed every day. I could not function. It was so traumatic for me.
So,
And I think that's also why it was really hard to go back to school that 3 days later, because I had just gone through a very traumatic experience, and now I have to be at school and be like, hey, welcome back, and I don't look different, but I feel different, and I'm exhausted. And we didn't even get on the subject of, I had started hormone blockers at the end of July, so all of these things are happening in my body and to my body, and it was very hard to go back to real life and pretend that nothing was really going on. And I am a very good masker. I can mask very well. So it was very much of a struggle, and still is.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, obviously, I don't think you had to pretend that everything was going very well. I didn't. But you felt like you did. Yeah. You felt like you needed to put on a brave face and pretend like everything was fine. And, but also, there's something to the fact that, you couldn't just lay around the house. That was not on the books. You couldn't, you could have taken some more vacation. You could have said, you know what, I'm not going to be able to start school. But I actually think it was better for you. Oh, 100%. Because you don't do well with just being at home. I don't. And so you would have just been caught in the constant cycle of, I hate radiation, I just got out of that whole thing. Oh, and so it was good for you. It doesn't mean it was easy, right, but it was good for you to go to school. It was good for you to get back into a rhythm of life that, go to school for 5 days, Saturdays off, Sundays church, go back to school. And start kind of reestablishing that normalcy, because you have been changed. You're a cancer survivor now, but you still are who you are. You still were, you still are, you still, that didn't change everything about you, it just added something. And I think that walking through that, as hard as it may have been, was very good for you. So, that's an hour.
For all of you that think I'm doing so well, this is reality.
She is doing really well.
Still 14 months later, and it's still a struggle sometimes.
Well.
So if all you did was hear me sniff tonight for an hour, sorry.
Yeah, a better editor could edit all that out, but I...
Yeah, Paul told me at the very beginning he doesn't edit.
Nope.
So
you get what you get.
Pretty much get
and
to
you don't
hear
throw
me
a fit.
Sniff and cry.
But I got to talk more, so that's probably nice for them. I find it nice for me.
We skipped over so many things.
I skipped ahead. Doesn't mean we can't go backwards. If you want to talk about some of those things, you can talk about them. Okay. We will. But you were not talking because you couldn't talk. So I talked about what I was going to talk about because I didn't have anything to say about all that stuff. So, yeah. Welcome to walking through cancer 14 months later, reliving radiation like it was just yesterday. And wishing, like Dr. Evil, you should get some frickin' lasers in here. Is that too much to ask?
Actually, what I really want right now is chocolate.
Yeah, well, good news, because when I was at work today, I put some little Hershey singles in my pocket.
Yeah.
And then I forgot they were in there. And when I got to the car after work and I reached for my keys, there were 2 globules of chocolate still in the package. And I put them in my lunchbox. And when I got home...
you said, and I quote, "Oh, you can throw those away."
Yeah, I did.
No, who throws chocolate away?
Callie's like, these can be rejuvenated. We'll put them in the freezer.
In fact, I'm going to go get one right now.
Okay, well, there you go. Callie's going to have chocolate.
I need some chocolate, and Paul's going to wrap it up.
Callie's going to have some chocolate. Maybe you should have some too. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be sure to be back with episode 3 sometime soon. Check it out everywhere you look and listen to Good and Fine podcast and our podcast too. And so hope you have a wonderful week.
Happy 4th.
Try to survive the 4th. Don't blow anything off, and we'll catch you on the flip side.